everybody. Welcome to our show. So, today we are going to be going to part 2 of our center series, despite of the boo-boo I noticed that said it's part 1. It's actually part 2. Part 1 was last week. So if you missed part 1 of the centers, go check out our highlight section. All of our previous broadcasts can be found in our highlights, and you can check out what we talked about for the head, the ajna, and then the throat center. So today we are going to be going down the body graph, and we're going to start us off with the G center, then going into the ego slash heart center, and finishing off with the spleen. And then afterwards, we have Moni showing all the themes that we talked about in her own body graph. So that's going to be really, really fun, especially since she has a defined ego, and that is her authority, which can also be found in a previous episode. And if you are new to our channel, welcome. We are so excited to have you here. Please ask all the questions in the chat. Hey, Salty. Oh, that's so fun. And, you know, that's the whole reason we do this live, so we can interact with you and answer any questions you may have. And also, if you're super new, please give us a follow. It shows us that you're enjoying what we're doing and you're getting value from it. So it shows us some love. And yeah, that would be fabulous. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my co-hosts, Moni and Danny. They are going to start off with our first 2 centers of the night. So here we are. Hello, Moni.
Hello, hello. Nice seeing you again.
All right, I am so stoked that we are continuing our journey. Let's bring up our fabulous visual aids so people can follow along and see the things.
I thought you were
Because,
going to say, let's bring up our fabulous Danny.
well, there's Danny too, but I wanted to make sure he was settled in. There we go. He
I
is
know,
now.
I know.
Huzzah! And our master chart reader, Danny, is in the house.
Hey everyone, it's good to see you. I'm so glad to be here.
Amazing. All right. So I will pass off this section to you both and fade in.
G Center overview. So this is good. We're continuing our journey, going through the centers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we really just hopefully there's questions to show up. I'm gonna try and turn on my comments over here. And
Get
who
it
do we
all
got?
going.
Hi, everyone's saying hey everyone.
And
Tom,
thanks, Tom Skillet, for the curl
oh,
compliment.
awesome. Salty screen. Yeah, that's good. Mini Moni, that's you, Moni.
That's a me.
Yep, that's good. So G Center and everyone, there should be lots of questions that keep showing up. Just generally speaking, over time, we hope to put all the stuff together on a big teaching course. And we can do that on minor levels, but G Center, just starting with it, type the identity center and these themes of the G Center. I may elaborate some on the themes, just so you know. The G Center, also known as the identity. It's what this houses our sense of self and basically our self's direction, its purpose, and this attracting of the love. It's about love and direction. It's about attracting what you truly need, not always what you desire. And it really is going to be truly what you need. The physical associations, liver and the blood, and this is important because the liver, Moni, the liver has great significance in history, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah. I mean, the liver is everything. The liver is it's like what's cleaning our entire body.
Absolutely, but certain tribes held it in high esteem. I
Mm.
know animals fight over it, so there's
Mm.
something about it that's slightly different. They don't fight over anything else, and so ultimately, this identity that comes into us. I probably better get to the next screen, right?
Did you ever hear that raw quote about the liver and like the G center?
What
It's like
about it?
how the G center, the identity center, it's linked with the liver in our body. And so the liver and the G center, right? It's the center for identity and direction, which is why a drunk who's like toxifying his liver can't make love and he can't find his way home.
Oh yeah, they never really find their way. You lose your direction. Alcohol makes sure, and plenty of other things make sure you lose your direction. You know
Mm-hmm.
what? I don't know if it's on the next slide, but love and direction are these really big themes. They're not just the two words. They flesh out into a great big story. Should we talk about that now, or is it on the next slide? Do you know?
I have no idea. Mon is the slide magician.
Oh, that's too small. You're up, Moni.
Oh, I'm up. Okay, let me make it bigger on my thing. Full
Can you
screen.
see it?
Okay. Yeah, I could full screen it, and then the comments go away, and then I make it small again to see comments. So the low expression, the blocks for the G center, also known as the identity center, it's hiding authenticity. It stifles the true self to fit in or to gain approval. Self
Yeah.
doubt and loss of identity, feeling like an imposter, constantly searching for their core self. Comparison traps, comparing themselves to others, leading to self judgment and criticism.
Yeah, not knowing where you are. See, the thing is, if you have a defined G center, place is everything. If you're in the wrong place, you'll be with the wrong people. That's just a thing, even if it's your husband or your best friend. Um, not that they're bad. It's not you. They won't be wrong an hour later. But if you're in the wrong place, the people and the things in your direction go wrong. And when you have an open identity center, it's literally this sense of I'm still looking for love and direction. Where is the love and direction? And when you talk about love and direction, love powers basically everything, and it powers it right off of the vessel of love. And there's a lot of stuff going on there. There's what the love of humanity and the love of extremes and the love of extremes of humanity, as well as the making it modest, all in one gate. 15, right? And 10 is behavior, love of ourselves, essentially. And so these things are, and 25 is universal love. It's innocence, the love of all things, the catcher for the warrior spirit, the other side, the almost the priest and the priestess too. And then the love of our body and being now in our body, living now. I just built something in the backyard, and the whole time I loved myself doing the thing. And that was gate 46. There's a lot of stuff. And if you're open identity center, you can't quite tell that you've got that stuff pushing a direction. You don't believe it. The smallest thing can throw you off track and make you think that where am I going? I can't tell who I am and who I am here. So back to place, and place ends up being everything. Do anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, that was really beautiful. I was gonna bring in the like the train car metaphor, right? Whereas
Yeah.
like someone within a defined identity, it's like they got that like San Francisco streetcar where we're like hooked in and like we are like going on a path and this is where we're going. And we got that ticket and we got that train that we're catching. And with like the undefined or the open identity, if that's white or not colored in your human design chart, then it's like I feel it's like they don't have the train ticket already like picked out and they don't know which like train they're going to jump on, right? But that's like the kind of fun because they're like the adventurous ones, and so like waiting for the right train cars because it's like it's inconsistent, and just like
Right.
understanding that if that's like undefined in somebody's chart, that energy of like where am I going and like am I lovable, it can kind of be here and it could not be here and it can be here and it
Am I
cannot be here.
lovable?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that inconsistency and being okay with like, hey, that energy for somebody with that undefined, it's going to be inconsistent.
absolutely. And when it's again undefined, hooking onto basically it hooks you into your geometry. That's more gate two inside the G center, but the G center itself does that too. And if it's open and undefined, what ends up happening is you could get on the car, it's not already pre-stamped, like you said, right? So you can't quite necessarily tell, and it's a problem. So if you got a defined identity center and that same thing happens, it's not so much of a problem. Can't tell where I'm going. Hey, where are you going, Dan? I can't tell. What's it say? It's says over here, but I wasn't sure I was going to do. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter so much. But and bringing it back to life, it matters to the open identity center. And if you come in for a reading, we'll help fix that basically, so that you start seeing the wisdom of it. But moving on.
Yeah, I just had one last little thought
Oh,
that kind of popped through, right? With like the whole like train car metaphor. Then it just like if someone has that like undefined and being in the wrong place, you're with the wrong people. So it's like if you're at the wrong train station, you're gonna get on the wrong train and you're gonna go the wrong way.
yep.
Just I
And
try to
you're
like
afraid
make
of
it
that.
more tangible.
and you're afraid of that. If you're but actually defined or undefined, you're still potentially afraid of that because you don't know that this is moving along, doing these very specific things that you can experiment with and see. Um, so yeah, we let's get people unafraid of their love and direction,
Yeah,
open or defined. It just doesn't matter.
yeah. All right, I'm reading.
Yep, please.
Cool. So high expression. What a like lovely little pictures. It was like the sad little like Oliver Twists lost before, and now it's like happy, like delightful dancers. I love it. So
Yeah.
high expression of the defined G center. Magnetic authenticity that attracts through genuine self-expression of who they truly are. There's also an unwavering self-knowing, possessing an unshakable confidence in their identity, clear purpose and direction, knowing their life path and destiny with clarity, embodiment for growth, aligns with actions with their desired future selves. There's a journey of self discovery that actively explores who they are at their core, an intentional identity, crafting their identity based on who they aspire to be, and a confidence in being, knowing themselves deeply and expressing it boldly. It's
And
lovely.
confidence in knowing themselves deeply, yeah, expressing boldly. So, um, a healthy G center defined, the high expression. I know who I am, no matter what the circumstance. I know who I am, and and I know who I am. So think about the person who's just they're aware and it's just not doesn't bother them and other people see that and then suddenly if they have an open G center it's like why don't I know where I am? Why don't
Mm,
I know who I am? And so these are senses that happen in the person and each individual being, and I really can't wait to read more for people. Uh David Copperfield, Melt Steampunk, what is this? Awaken. Hey Debbie. Yep. Okay.
David Copperfield meets steampunk.
Yep.
All
What do we
right.
got?
So, healing defined G center blocks. Authenticity is contagious. By embracing my true self, I inspire others to do the same, creating a magnetic energy. Like that's
Mm,
definitely true. You know,
yeah.
like in my pre-human design days when I like did not embrace myself or understand myself and I was just a big mess. Like it's inspires the opposite, you know, like you become repellent. I definitely was repellent in some of my days. So the more we can like heal ourselves and like be who we are, then like it does like magnetize others to us. It does inspire other people to do the same, you know. It encourages
Absolutely,
in
it
that way.
provides direction for the rest of humanity, the G center is directing humanity towards love and beauty. I mean, that's a fact. Um, so the salty screen says, what are some good deconditioning practices for these blocks? And as always, it's going to be understand and follow your strategy and authority. So really come in for a landing on that so we can really, bring that home for you. But are you, salty screen, are you defined or undefined in your G center? Do you know? Hit back and answer. Um, cool.
Do you have some for like maybe some for the open, some for the defined? Because I'm sure there's people gonna be
Well,
having a little bit of both in the chart
well,
in
yeah,
in
I
chat.
mean, we've been talking about the open G centers, the undefined one, emotional manifesting generator. Oh, it's defined. Okay, so these blocks. We've been talking about the open already. So the defined G center, some of the blocks would be not accepting that what's the scoop with you. Not accepting that it's good enough when you're clearly in the right place. Can you think of any, Moni?
Some deconditioning for
Yeah.
the defined identity.
Deconditioning tips for some of these roadblocks is what Salty Screen asked.
Yeah, the thing that's really coming through is like taking care of ourselves and our body. You know, it's like the identity center is linked with the liver, and so it's just like how healthy are our bodies, how healthy are our livers that are like cleaning our bodies so we can actually be who we are. So it's just like taking care of ourselves, loving ourselves, and like honoring our own needs, and like when we need to like rest and take care of ourselves, or when it's time to go out and maybe when it's not time to go out. I think like first and foremost is just like, hey, like accepting the body that you have. It's not going to change, and you can try to fight it all you like, but like you got the body you got. And to get to that point, baby stepping your way into accepting it and then loving yourself. And I think for defined or undefined, like that's going to shine through a lot. It's like you can't change anything you hate. And I think by loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves, that puts us in like a primo position.
I got one. Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And I'll say this probably plenty of times because you do already love yourself, salty screen, and you have actually no blocks, your true self, your not self has blocks. Um, and because everything's actually great with you, even if you find that hard to believe at the moment, start telling yourself what Moni was saying. I love this body I'm in. I love me. I love doing the thing. And say the words out loud, especially if you don't believe it,
Hmm.
because it's true. The thing you don't believe is who you're not. As I hope that doesn't sound confusing, but it's true. So say it and then say it with some gusto, especially if you don't believe it. What do you think of that? I think that's great.
Oh, I think that's, like, huge. It's like you don't appreciate breathing until you have a really bad cold, and then you can't breathe through your nose, and you're just like, "Oh my god, I hate this. This is horrible," right? And then, like, the day you can breathe again, you're like, "This is the best day ever," until it just becomes your norm, or it's like if you sprain your ankle and you gotta, like, limp around, like, that's when you appreciate that you can walk, right? So it's like, think of those times when you didn't have XYZ ability, when you weren't feeling well, and then like
Mhm.
appreciate yourself every single time that like wow, my body's walking, I'm moving around, I could live and I can love and I can connect with other people and I can do all these amazing things. Like, don't compare yourself to others. Like, you don't want somebody else's life, like you don't know what they're going through, and just comparison is always the thief of joy. And so only you can be you. You're once in a lifetime cosmic event. So I don't know, appreciate it, because it's no use not liking yourself. It
Yeah,
doesn't get
no,
you anywhere. Like, it's just gonna take you to worse places.
it's absolutely true. What was next on the is there any more bullet points? Okay, cool.
On the undefined. Cool.
Shadows and expressions. You want me to try this one?
I mean, if it's big enough, if the font's big enough for you.
We're gonna see if I look like I'm staring at something. It's because I am. External validation craves external approval for successes and self-worth. It is definitely trying to do that. What does that say? Purpose confusion.
Mhm.
That's weird. Purpose confusion. Uncertain about their true life's purpose. Yeah, and where they're headed. Absolutely. Um, Love seeking identity. So love seeking. As soon as you're seeking, this is a thing. And it ends up being as soon as you're seeking, you're not finding.
Yeah.
If you haven't noticed, defines themselves by seeking external love and acceptance. Remember, you love you first. Try this one on. And say this to yourself. I love you, but I love me more. And that's perfectly healthy. I can't read 3, 4, and
Inauthentic.
fourth one, yeah, inauthentic.
I could jump in. Inauthentic labels adopts identities based on others' expectations, trying to be someone for somebody else, to be part of a community, or to be maybe if I act this way, I can be hanging out with these people. Conditional success, viewing success as a means to gain approval. Again, that acceptance to be part of something, to like be connected with people. Low self esteem, struggling with self love and positive self image, right? It's the looking at somebody else's, like the grass is always greener, right? And identity crisis, being uncertain about their core identity, because that energy is inconsistent. It's coming and it's going, and you're feeling how other people are living and feeling how other people are loving. So when that's undefined, they can feel like it's not there all the time, therefore something's wrong. When it's like, nah, you're here to like taste how everyone's living and loving. Like, you're here for the buffet option.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that's actually good stuff.
Oh yeah, the
Cool.
undefined identity people I know, like they travel to all the coolest places. Undefined identity people
Well, they
like have
do
been
because
all over the world.
and it's fine that they do that. They're supposed to do that. What they're
Yeah.
supposed to be looking for if you're undefined is a deep sense that you're in the right place. And that's moment to moment, and it's in long stretches of time, and a deep sense that you're aware basically what the G center does. I mean, let's take step back a few thousand feet and look at this thing. In the G center, what's its real purpose? It's our identity is our love and direction. that's the thing. This feeds into, and what's in the G center. You got the vessel of love, which houses most of the bottom gates, and then you've got the Sphinx. It's the only center that has two crosses where it has all the gates of the crosses. And these something else about the G center. If you look around the wheel's got 64 gates in it, and the G center is the actual center of the body graph and the center of the wheel itself, because every 8 gates changes a new gate along the G center. It just goes right around the G center, and every 8 gates it changes straight up even. So it basically holds down a clock
Mhm.
where Festival of Love is all the celebrated solstice, equinox,
Yeah.
autumn, spring, summer, winter. That's the vessel falls on those, and the Sphinx falls in between, keeping the direction going. They would be the interim, the interregnums between these two things that olden day used to, when our hands were on the farm and stuff, we would pay attention to them. Now that we're all in cities and stuff, it's fallen by the wayside, but we used to celebrate the middle times as well, right? And so this proved that there was a direction. Hey, we're all headed this way towards the bounty. We're all headed this way. And it had to have beauty. It had to have love. It had to feel it was in the right place. It had to have communion with the other. It had to bring along everyone else so that we could feel empowered. I mean, the G center is loaded with individual gates, and a gate that points at the ego, which is still individual, and collective gates. So it's a sharing self-love machine. This
Mhm.
is what it is, and it's a sharing I love you machine, as long as people don't take that too personally, you know what I mean? Oh, they love me. Well, yes, of course I love you. I'm not ready to get married or anything, but um, the two different things. And so if you're looking for love and you think you're looking for it, understand I said think you think for a reason. That is who you're not, no matter how desperate it feels. Cool. That's the G center.
You just wrapped a little bow on that.
Yeah.
Oh, we switched over. Cool. Do you want to read this one or should I?
I can't make this. Oh, I got the first couple. Let's
You
see.
get the first couple, I'll jump in.
Undefined G center, the high expressions. Yeah. So before I even read these, where you're open is where you get wisdom. It's just period. It's where we go to school. It's where we get intelligent. I may not know the right place, and I may be able to, as a defined G center, and you too, Moni, we may be able to suffer in some crappy place because, whatever, we'll live. It's your job to say, oh, no, no, you don't have to do that, and help us find the right place. If you're open, you're helping the world find the right place, move in the right direction, the whole 9 yards, and you're witnessing it, and you can move in any direction, and you can see which ones are adaptable and best for others, and communion worth being shared to empower the love of all things and the love of humanity's extremes, moving in a direction that is now or into the future or coming from the past. It's incredible. I bet you I read through most of these. So let me try this. Adapt. What is that? Adaptable chameleon. Yep. Uh, so shape shifts to be able to meet the needs of each situation where they're at. You know what I mean? Seeing where they're at so they can know that they need to go or not. Um, Self-care is included. It prioritizes their own needs, although it's alongside, yeah, external expectations. So yeah, it absolutely would prioritize its own needs.
You gotta
As
put
long,
your own oxygen mask on first.
huh?
Like, you gotta put your own oxygen mask on first, like, in every situation. Like, you gotta take care of yourself first or, like, everyone's fucked.
Yep. Present moment focus, thrives in the now, without needing, yeah, a grand plan. That's the whole thing. You don't actually need the grand plan. You just need to be in the right place. And you need to see that you're seeing that. And you need to not doubt the fact that you are the love of the direction. You don't need it. You are it. Open or defined. Just, keep that in mind. Yeah, I stopped at the third one.
Cool, I'll jump in. Inherently lovable, already worthy of love just as they are. Environment matters, surroundings influence their magnetism. Yeah, like, this is definitely an interesting thing with especially with, like, the undefined G people, it's like, that's an awareness center. Like, if you have an open, undefined G center and you feel weird somewhere, like, get out of Dodge. Like,
Mhm.
just like trust yourself on that, and like that's an amazing awareness center. It's like you just said, like all the undefined centers and gates and channels in our chart, like that's where we can be wise, that's where we can learn about this energy in different ways. It's like if you have that undefined G center, like be smart about it, and like if you get that funny feeling, like get out of dodge. And like the other thing with the undefined G center people is like, so it's like where they're located, right, wherever in like a place or in a room, but also like moving furniture around and like finding where different things are located and
It's
what
true.
feels right in like a feng shui kind of way. Like that's a
Yeah.
really fun thing for, I mean, everybody, but especially with people with like an undefined G center. The next
Yeah,
one,
yeah. That was the magnetism. I mean, the environment matters. Yep, that's what you just pointed out. Um,
yeah,
flexible. Go ahead.
flexible and unattached, adapts to situations and isn't defined by external roles. Self love and openness, embraces their true self and allows love to flow freely.
Flows freely. That's the thing. So, and that's open or defined, but and when it's open and undefined, this G center, this allowing it to flow freely is your security that somewhere along the way you faked it till you made it.
Yeah,
Right?
that's everybody. You know,
Yeah.
it's like we're always going in a direction. You're going up or you're going down. Like that's just what life is. There's no coasting. Either you're making decisions that you're going up or you're making decisions that you're going down. So it's like have like a good intention and like start going in that direction and like yeah, fake it till you make it. Because you're gonna get somewhere either way. So you might as well have a good sense of like, you know what, like I want to go take positive steps and I'm gonna just take that smallest little one that I can and see where that takes me.
Absolutely. Yep. I love that. Well, a whole bunch of things have come in. Hopefully we answered your question, Salty.
I figure Moana brings them up when they're like necessary for us to look at.
Oh, she puts them on the screen. Okay.
That's what I was banking on, so thanks. So healing the undefined G center shadows. Embracing my ever evolving self with love opens doors to opportunities without the pressure of a fixed identity.
Mm, yeah. So if you want to heal it, first of all, just realize there's nothing wrong with it in the first place. But if you want to see it and feel the healing, follow that advice. I mean, really, what we should be doing, Moni, is driving people in to be read, and slowly but surely creating the self-help human design spaces that are part of something that people can chime in and talk and ask questions about. Um,
We're getting there. It's all going in that direction.
I
All
guess I
the
stayed.
baby steps.
Sorry about that.
I just always figure it's like the baby steps that add up, right? Like it's like humans, we overestimate what we can do in a day and we underestimate what we can do in a year. So it's like if
Yep.
you're doing like 1% every day, that's 365 in a year. So it's like
Yep.
keep doing those little positive steps that add up. It's all the consistency more than anything else.
It's so true. The ego overview. So the will center, the heart, willpower. It's that little red. Well, this here it's yellow, but in the book it's the red triangle. But anyways, it's only got four possibilities for activation. So it's not as defined in the world as you might think, even though it's right there in the middle of it all. Uh, the will center embodies willpower, self-worth, material desires, and successes. Um, and drives passion and action towards these things. Yeah, I'll go along with that. Other themes of the will center and the G center are, I mean, of the heart center are doing it because you said you're going to do it. Doing it even when you didn't want to do it, and then feeling good about it. You know what I mean? Even though you didn't want to, but once it's done, they get a reward. Getting an ego reward, bragging, wanting to brag, and brag is like pick a different word than brag, but it's say the thing that you did.
Yeah,
You know,
feeling that sense of like satisfaction of like, hey, I did the thing, I participated, I put effort into a thing that was hard in whatever way, and we did it, and yay.
right, and yay me. And so
Yeah.
don't ever let anybody tell you that you shouldn't be saying yay me or you're bragging too much. You're not. You're supposed to do that. Um, Physical association. It's the heart, the gall, the thymus gland, the stomach, and that's why it's part of the digestive system. Each gate 21, the heart muscle itself, gate 26, the thymus and the home of the killer T cell, the ego T cell. not on my backyard. You know what I mean? That's what it says. Get out of my tribe. That's what the killer T says.
Oh,
Um,
hell yeah.
yep, yep. Gates 25 is basically this gall. 51, the
51
gall
that
to
connects to
leap.
25.
Yep, yep. The gall to leap. The gall's to say whatever. I mean, actually, it's really that's good. That's a good thing for it. And then the stomach itself, because 40, gate 40 is basically it's if 37 is sort of the mouth that feeds and says affectionate things, 40 is the stomach that takes in the sustenance from 37. So yeah, powerful center. It keeps its commitments, or it wants to. And by the way, if it doesn't keep its commitments, guess what it does? Hey, I couldn't do it. Sorry. But you said you would. Yeah, I know. But I couldn't do it. They'll just say it. You know what I mean? Because they're not worried about their own self-worth. But
With that defined or which one?
yeah, when it's defined, I've
Yeah.
seen defined egos just tell you, yeah, I screwed it all up. So you said you'd do the thing. Oh no,
Eh,
well, I thought I would, and I didn't.
eh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
we
I
need
try
that
so
ego.
hard to not commit to anything unless I'm like legit committed. Like, we'll see. We'll see. We're tentative. I'll get back to you.
Think of what the ego does. It puts its shoulder to the wheel. The
Hmm.
ego built the temples. Ego also made sure that it had its rest. The ego needs its reward ratio. That's what gate 40 is all about. Deliverance. That moment of transition in between where you're moment of liberation between the struggle and the rest. And it's deliverance, and it just wants to be delivered from one to the other. So the ego demanded on shorter work days. Poor
Mhm.
dumb generators, we were all going to slave 18 hours a day, and we did. Ego's like, oh no, 12. Now that we're at 12, 8, you know, 8
It's
final.
true. It's true.
We'll do
Like
some
the will.
overtime.
Well, the
We'll do
Will
over.
Center, it's like the Will Center could rally. Like,
Yeah,
all right, we need to do this. Okay, I'm the only one who could do this. No one else can do this. Like, okay, you sure? Like, pad the will, like, fluff my
right,
feathers a little bit, and like, all right, I'm a rally, and like, I'll get that shit done. But then, like, leave me alone afterwards. Like, I'm
right.
gonna go lay down and make sure
Yeah,
like you're only bugging me because it's like really worth my while, and I'm the one who can do it. Not that like you got 10 other people who are available. It's like, don't bug me with that.
yeah, it's just such a powerful thing, and people around the ego center can be made to feel less worthy. And we're going to read that on some of these things. So we better read through the bullet points.
Yeah. All right. Shadows, low expression, scarcity mindset. This is all for the undefined ego when it's white undefined in your chart. So, scarcity mindset feels a lack of control in getting what they desire, a need for validation, seeking external approval to prove their self worth. That need to prove, like undefined will, is if you ever feel the need to prove something, just don't.
Just don't.
Just please don't. You don't
Yeah,
have
let
to.
the ego people do it. That's their
Yeah,
job.
exactly. Just let us.
Right.
We got it. Focus on deficiency, believing they need to improve to be worthy. Again, needing to prove themselves. It's like, please stop trying to prove
Proven
yourself.
worthy.
They just
Proven
like
worthy.
it's like they just end up looking silly. Like, I don't even know, want to be like a jerk, but it's just like when you see that undefined will that's like all fluffed up and they're trying to prove themselves, and it's just like, oh my god, can you please not and just like let me handle it. Competitive drive, pushed by a need to be the best and avoid failure, constant self proving, expending energy, demonstrating their value, force discipline, enforcing rigid discipline to maintain control, like they're trying to like overdo it, overcommitment and burden, making excessive promises leading to self pressure. And then that like hurts their hearts of just like, if you have the
Yeah.
undefined will, like you don't have consistent energy to will through and prove yourself. So if you're trying to commit to something that you can't commit to and you won't be able to, like you're setting yourself up for failure and you're hurting your heart. Like, just don't make commitments. Be like, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. And you've got a motto for the undefined center, and it's a very simple motto. It's I've got nothing to prove. I mean, it really is I have nothing to prove. And I take that home profoundly. Got nothing to prove. Big time. And the thing is, you'll prove plenty of things because you're open to what proof is any good. You're open to what would be the right thing for you to even bother to prove. And it's not proving it at the same time, even though it may be. Dude, I'll get that done. I'll prove it to you. That's not, maybe you did. That may be an appropriate statement for an open ego person if they're empowered, if that's what their strategy and authority had them doing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And they felt individually empowered in that moment because it's their thing. Okay. That, but rarely, open ego people might get things like stage fright, you know what I mean? And not think they can play live their instrument or what else? Just various anxieties will come on about not feeling worthy, but you've got nothing to prove. And here's another good one. I see it a lot that the open ego, it can do this thing, this self-torturing thing where you do a thing, right? You're open ego, you got this thing, you do a thing, you see someone else doing a similar thing and it's better, or you think it's better, or you're concerned they're going to be better than you. And how come they can do that thing and I can't? Or how come they started doing that thing? What if they become better than me? So all that kind of self-talk, you don't care. You don't care. As a teacher, I should, as a teacher in a seven-centered world, you know what I mean, just business only, I should seek to keep my students down a little bit, only give them
Mhm.
enough. Don't let them get smarter than me. That's what a lot of the big gurus do, still to this day, right? All the no mind people and so forth. I've seen that kind of attitude
Mhm.
come out. It's crazy.
Mhm.
It's absolutely insane because if you've got an open ego, then it's like I need you to be big. That's what you should be telling your students. Get bigger than me. I got nothing to prove. I've got no ego to bruise. Oh, you look stupid, Dan. The other person was better than you. What's the matter? You're not good at them, as good as them. Apparently, that they're really good at what they do. This is great. I like that they're being big.
Uh-huh.
Good. Yeah, instead of, like, feeling all that self-doubt in that moment, right? Where someone tried to call you out and you could be so embarrassed or try and change the subject or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Uh-uh.
There's
Lean
always
in.
somebody better.
Yeah,
Like,
lean in. I got nothing to prove.
yeah. And it
Nothing to
feels so much better too. Like, I mean, it's like, I mean, I have the defined will, so it's like I'm a different thing, but like feeling undefined will people, like
Mhm.
you saying that, you're like, I got nothing to prove, like groovy gravy, like, yeah, some people are better than me. Like, I'm glad I taught them and they are better than me, whatever. Like having that attitude feels so much better than the undefined will people that get so like, oh no, 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 no. And they like get big puffy chests and they try to like just like
They're no
really
good
like
at competing.
yeah.
I've never met an open
Ugh.
ego that actually wants to compete. I mean, occasionally,
Yeah.
right? Their friend comes up and says, "I'll race you to the store." Okay, that's perfect. That's two people just being alive. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying, like this competition. You know what I mean?
The
Sales.
insecurity and stuff, that weird energy where it's like so you can feel that somebody is somebody doing something because it's correct for them and it lights them up and like that energy is flowing, or if it's like, as you said, that comparison, that insecurity, and if they're acting from that place of insecurity to try to prove, it's just cringy and uncomfortable compared to
Mm,
you're like, dude, I'm cool, I'm good. Like there's people that are better than me and like God bless them. Like that just it feels so much better for you, for me, for everyone.
it's so true. Got nothing to prove. Remember that.
Mhm.
Excuse me. What were some of the rest of the words? We probably said most of them,
So
right?
the undefined ego center, the high expression, self-worth fluctuations, experiencing inconsistency in their sense of value and being okay with it. Like being okay with like, hey, that's something that's going to fluctuate because you're feeling it from other people, right? And like
Yep.
from the planets and stuff. So sometimes you're going to feel really like, rah rah, and other times you're going to be like, I'm chill, and like just roll with
Knowing
it.
your
Like,
limitations. Knowing your
yeah,
limitations.
and
Yeah,
everyone's got
that
their limitations. So it's like even if like you have an undefined ego, you got this other thing defined that somebody else doesn't have. Like, let us all be different and like unique because then the world is better.
Moni,
So
I was in music school at Berkeley. I went to Berkeley College of Music in Boston. I was supposed to be in film scoring. Classical pianist I was, a bunch of things. Lots of fun. By the time I graduated, there were so many cats at Berkeley College of Music. There were so many people there that were way better than me. They could write a score in 10 minutes or an hour, and I would take days and days at it, just because that was just my way. They would do, there was just a strong people that were a lot better than me, and I suddenly realized, wow, I'm pretty good, but I'm also mediocre. And so I started to try and get some work in the field, and I just remember quickly I realized, dude, these other cats that graduated way ahead of me, they're gonna snap up all the jobs. I quit. I quit. And if you have an open ego, you're a great quitter. And you've got to learn to say, I'm healthy. I love me, right? I didn't actually quit. I stopped. I stopped. I didn't wanna anymore. Anyone could have called that a quitter, and with the language I have about me, with the reply would be, "What the hell are you talking about? I didn't quit anything. I stopped."
Well, and like you shifted gears.
I shifted. I
You
went,
did something
"Oh,
different. Like
you
it,
weren't
you
good
know,
enough. You couldn't do the thing you were." No, actually, I wasn't. I was entirely mediocre in a pond of certain people that were like freaking savant players. You know what I mean? They could write a score in freaking 20 minutes. You
when you
know?
find whatever else that like does light you up, that is what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
It's like you can only have so many hobbies. Like you can go to school and you can have a job and you can have like two hobbies, right? Like
I
that.
would have suffered. I would have
You
suffered had I
yeah,
continued
like
to try and get jobs in the film scoring music industry back in the '90s. I would have suffered and
and we
suffered
wouldn't
hard.
have you here with us now. And I prefer that personally in my own
I do
selfish
too.
manner.
Yeah. Thank you, Moni. Me too.
Yeah. All right. So, worth inherent. Their value is intrinsic and not dependent on external validation. Deserving by being. They're worthy simply for who they are, regardless of feeling. They
Mhm.
enjoy the game, embracing competition for the challenge, not just to win. Right? That's the thing, right? Like playing
Mm.
like competition is for so much more than winning. Like, yeah, learn how to win, but also learn how to lose. Like that's
Yeah,
why
yeah,
you
yeah.
like do that as like little kids and you shake hands afterwards and you do that because it's like you need to learn how to win gracefully and we need to learn how to lose gracefully because like hey, you're not going to win everything and like if you could do it gracefully then like you got more opportunities and you're just a better person, a better, more ethical person of like, hey, that person's better and like good on them. And I'm glad that we're increasing who can do what and that people are better.
It's so true. If you got this open ego thing and you are competing, suddenly you find yourself competing, it's the right competition. And it's not really to even necessarily to win half the time, like against somebody. It's just to do good. It's to see how you did. Open ego people, one of the good bullet points here would be that they didn't mind seeing how they did.
Mm.
I jumped in, I hopped in the race. I wanted to see how I would do. Not necessarily to win, and if you win, that's good. Another healthy thing, undefined ego. Are we reading the healthy things or the?
This is the undefined ego.
Yeah, go ahead and finish.
Yeah, let's just get through and then we'll jump back in. Effortless manifestation, attracting desires without forceful pursuit. Let it come to you. Discerning promises, makes mindful commitments with flexibility for change. I'd even say for undefined ego people, like, I'd rather they just not make commitments. Like one of my cousins,
Yeah,
like she always
don't
she'll
do
want
it.
to hang out and she would feel bad because she'd like try to make a commitment and not be able to. I'm like, girl, let's make it tentative and we'll check back in and like not holding her to that because she doesn't have that consistent commitment energy. So like, I don't know, like why
Think of
bother? If you
where the
don't have to commit,
punishment is.
don't commit.
Think of where the punishment is in our language. Our language, actually, by the way, has got to get retooled, just generally speaking. Even the contraction I apostrophe LL says I will. When no, you won't, or maybe you will, maybe you won't. You don't
Hmm.
know.
Yeah, unless
If
you
it,
got the 2145, that's the
it-
only voice that is I will.
right, right. It's I possess, and it's I have or I don't have.
Hmm.
Um, and so every time you say, "I will," "I'm gonna," that's the ego trying to be an ego, yet you're an undefined ego. You may not. You've seen it a bunch of times. So you can stop being the great quitter now and just realize you can start whatever the hell you want. Please do. And when it didn't work out, you don't quit. You stop. You shift. That's what your 5-year-old self would have said, or your 4-year-old self when someone came along and said, "Hey, you were just building the treehouse. Why did you quit?" If you had the language for the adult, the dumbass adult who asked that question that way, you'd say, "I didn't quit, you freaking tool. I stopped." You know.
I
But of course,
changed gears.
you're 4, so you can't quite say that. But that's all you do. You stopped. Just get used to that and have it be okay. Otherwise, you will feel like a quitter, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So the final one is integrity and alignment. Aligns actions with promises to maintain integrity.
Mm. Yep.
Like, yeah,
Yep.
because that's the thing too, is like when I've seen like undefined will people, when they're in a weird place and it's like insecure and they're trying to like prove themselves, like to me that reads typically is like lacking integrity and lacking honor because they're coming from a place of like low self-worth, of insecurity in themselves or in their resources, and them trying to prove it, like it usually leads to them acting untoward, and it leaves a bad taste in the mouth, you know?
I
And like,
promise is another phrase. You know, you don't. You can't promise. Open ego people, promises are lies.
yeah,
Not every single time, but all too often.
yeah,
All
I'll
too often.
I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
Or
Tentatively, let's plan for this and let's check back in. Like that's what I do with all my undefined will people. I'm like, I ain't holding you to no commitment. It ain't
yeah,
worth it.
because then you get pissed yourself,
Yeah,
right? Think of how mad you were before you knew human design at people who didn't do the thing. They
yeah,
said they would and they don't. They said they would and they
yeah,
don't.
yeah,
They
yeah.
said they would over. Oh.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, I am still a little bit annoyed because you said you would like 100 times.
Well,
You
I
ever
just don't
did.
hold them to it. I hear my
Yeah,
my undefined will people who like say they will do something. I'm like, yeah, sure, we'll see.
we'll see. Yeah, yeah.
And I don't get
Yeah,
mad at them or nothing. It's just like we'll see.
we'll
They're in
see.
a low place and they're like, I'm never gonna do this again. And it's like, yeah, okay, let's see. And then like 2 weeks
I
later, they're like,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
it's on, we're
quit.
doing it.
Yeah, Rob would make jokes. He's like, I could have made a lot of money in the quit this or quit that business with the open ego people. They'd come into my office and they'd pay me a lot of money, and then I'd tell them, "You can do this, you can quit," and I'd pump them up with my big fat ego. He would say, and as soon as they left, they'd be in tears. Why can't I do it anymore?
Yeah,
Just it's don't find yourself there. It's not what's important, and that's who you're not. So
yeah,
healing undefined ego centers shadows. I trust that I am worthy of my desires, that I am worthy, General. I know I am worthy and I've got nothing to prove. Um, Regardless of fleeting self doubts, yep, they don't matter, and welcome them freely all the way through. So just keep realizing that you trust that you don't have nothing to prove. You're inherently worthy. We got a pass. I have open ego too. We got given a huge pass. It's the ego people that got to do all the work. So, in that area,
yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. That's a great way to look at it. It's like you're off
my
the hook. It's not your
you're off
thing.
the hook, dude. Yeah, and it's hard to let ourselves off the hook with that one, right? Because it feels like a cop out or something.
Well, and you're
You know,
feeling the energy from everybody else. So you're feeling this guy who's like with a pumped up will center and this chick over here with a pumped up will center. And then it's like, oh, 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 and like thinking it's theirs or thinking they got to keep it up. And then like they're out of aura and they can't, where it's just like you're feeling other people's. It's like, it's the same as like me being around like a generator and feeling that buzz. And like for a
yeah,
little bit, I can be like, hell yeah, I'm doing all this stuff. Oh my God, I'm getting so much done. And I'm like, oh,
right,
this
um,
isn't my energy. It's the same
right.
thing, but just in that will center kind of way of just like, yeah, like feel pumped up for a little bit and like feel really good and like enjoy it. But like you're getting high on someone else's supply. So like don't think it's yours and that you can take
Or
it
the
with you.
muscle memory of them, and let's say they left, but they put that ego in you all day because you were together, and they left, and you took on a little project. You had the muscle memory of that type thing, or
Oh,
just
that's a
because
good
it's in the
one.
world. So we all have to realize we have the memory of all of these centers, every single gate, every line, all of it, because it's all in the world. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Some are more profound than others, depending on who you've been around and what their charts are and all, but they're all there. And so, the last thing I wanted to say about that it was the last thing that she said. What was the last thing on there? It
Yeah.
was a good one. My value is independent of financial
Mm,
success. Almost can stop there, allowing me to pursue goals freely, embrace a more open-ended path, or just more different path, the path that lights you up. It's everything. It's about what lights you up, even if it's
mhm.
only a little more than what lit you up before. That was a really good one, by the way. That was really good. But it's like it's independent of what you have for money, what you have for stuff, what you can prove, because you don't feel like proving it. Just recognize you don't feel like proving it. You don't feel like it. You don't want to, and that's true. Let that be true for yourself. So we're moving on to which thing?
Defined ego center. Want me to get this one?
Yeah, would you?
Cool. So define ego center when that's filled and colored in on your chart. The blocks and low expressions. There can be a fear of judgment, worries that their desires will be seen as selfish or manipulative, pricing concerns, hesitates to charge a fair value due to fear of disapproval, right? Or it's the thing where it's like the undefined will project on the defined will, like, oh, you can do this for me. Why won't you just do it for me? And there's like an expectation on us.
Yeah, there.
Um, yeah, imposter syndrome, doubts capabilities despite knowing their worth. Guilt.
How about imposter syndrome tries to grab the successful accolades before they're due? That
Yeah.
imposter too. They try to, oh, they only have a little bit, but their ego makes them puff up and think they got it all, or can seem to only have the surface,
That's a good one. That is a good one.
imposter.
Yeah. Guilt of desire, feeling selfish for wanting more and achieving goals. Yeah, that could definitely be a thing of just like, people kind of being maybe a little judgmental and then you're feeling a little guilty that like, oh, that you can
That's
do it
so
or that
hard.
you are doing something.
Yeah,
Uh, Forceful manifestation, pushes aggressively to get what they want. Yeah, that could be a thing.
yeah,
The will is a powerhouse. Sometimes you forget how strong it is. Desire shame, suppresses desires due to shame of wanting more. Unhealthy competition, uses competition to prove power, not for growth.
right.
Selfish imbalance, can be excessively selfish, overgiving, and like lacking balance. Yeah, that could be a thing.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. All these things, the blocks and the expressions of this defined ego. The ego wants to roar, and it really wants to roar with what feels good to it. That's what's important to know. That's what the ego actually wants. That's what it's here for. When you have a defined ego and you realize you do, what you do is you end up doing the work that feels right. You end up getting the rest that you deserve. And the other thing too, ego people do generally, if you add up all the ego people and all the open ego people, the ego people make more money, generally
Mm,
speaking, if they have a capacity to ego basically manifest and advocate for what they need, and then the boss on the other end is looking at that and they're recognize, oh, that's, I don't want this powerful person to necessarily leave, I'm going to consider it, and the
mm,
opening, the person will be afraid to even ask.
mm.
I'm not
And
worried, they might
yeah.
fire me, right?
And that ability of just like ego people, it's like we have nitro boost. Like I
Yep.
will get the shit done that no one else can get done when it's like right for me, not everything, but when it's like very specific things of like I can fucking power through and like get that thing done. And so doing the work that's appropriate, that's appreciated, and then it's like I'm in and out. I'm gonna do my thing and I'm gonna go away and I'll help you. Don't expect me to do all of it.
Right,
But
right.
like, yeah, we can like nitro boost.
Yep, love that.
And especially if we're in a good place, like we will also amplify the other undefined will to be in a good place, to like take care of your will so other people are feeling that. So we got a question here from Glam Rogue. Just curious, for people who are perpetually in survival mode, resisting inner work unless it immediately makes money. Like the value is there, but life challenges don't wait until you figure yourself out?
No, I don't know.
Yeah,
um
can you like rephrase that question a little bit
No, I
more?
do know. I know what they're saying. I know
Okay.
exactly what you're saying.
Oh,
You
okay,
know,
sorry.
what I'm gathering is that, what I'm gathering is you're a little bit on the younger side. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I shouldn't go out on a limb like that, but it's just what you're talking about is these challenges, that the challenge is being who you're not. That's the real challenge. That's the challenging life. That's not a fun challenge at all. That leads to decay and despair. Everything that you just pointed out here makes me think you're a 3420 and you think that you're always busy on the cross of industry, maybe, or something, or a phoenix, and always, always thinking that you have to do the next thing. The challenges that are there, are only challenges because you said so. Not all. There are certain challenges you gotta rise to, you know what I mean? But more often than not, they're not. They're not life threatening. That doesn't matter if they were today or tomorrow. And you can look back and find you spent a lot of time on things that didn't matter about that. And so were the challenges true challenges, or did you just have an open route and want to keep going and powering through because you figure you can get to the end somehow? Open route people always think they can get to the end. There is no end, you know, right? Except death.
Yeah,
So so,
don't wrestle
I mean,
with it.
people are particularly in survival mode with that. That's, um, hun or dude, it's hun, right? That's a girl, most likely, right?
I'm
Yeah.
guessing. I don't know. I used to bartend, so everyone's like hun and babe and love. Like you
Alright.
just ubiquitously
Well,
like, hey hun,
uh,
love.
just we love you, A. I mean, just know that profoundly, and B, slide yourself in for a reading and an analysis. It's really analysis, and it's more like class. It takes a couple times, and come to know what's the scoop, so that that question doesn't really get asked the same way anymore. Just be ready for it when you do. And we go through a lot.
Yeah, and I'd also say like take it slowly, you know, where it's just like again, we overestimate what we can do in a day and underestimate what we can do in a year, and we'll get really overwhelmed because there's like a million different things happening, and it's just like, all right, if this is too big, cut that in half. And if
Right.
that step is too big, cut it in half. You
Yeah.
know, like you don't need to figure out everything all the time. You don't need to have all the answers. You never will. Like our minds can literally not process the amount of data and information that is out there, so that's where human design is really helpful because it's just like giving the mind a break and like turning it into the body of like, hey, what does my body feel, right? So depending on like this person's chart, you know, it was just like, do they have splenic awareness, right? Or are they sacral? Or is it emotional where it's like up and down, right? Where it's like try to slow it down and like take things in smaller bites and just like take it as it comes. You don't need to figure out the world. You don't need to, you know, have every answer. Just take things as they come. And if it's too big, cut that step in half and make it smaller, you
Got it now.
know?
Well, so
You're
you are so
welcome.
well. Yeah, no, it's not as bad as you think, Glam
Yeah.
Road. It really isn't. So hopefully you got our information. I mean, I can prove that to you, me with nothing to prove. But if you allow me, we will show you. It will be great. And you're gonna feel it, down deep. So
Cool. So defined ego in the high expression, manifestation magnet, designed to attract and fulfill your desires, desires with purpose. Your heart's desires serve a greater purpose. The power of no, setting boundaries and saying no empowers you. Right? Don't commit to things that like you don't actually want to do because that will hurt us. Like that hurts your heart, that hurts your energy. It just makes everything weird. So just like defined ego people, like don't commit unless like your heart's really in it because it just messes us up. Be like, I'll get back to you. Unshakable worth
yeah,
possesses a constant sense of inherent value, integrity in action, keeps promises and honors their word, right? So it's like, don't make promises unless you can really promise it, and then honor it when you do.
yep.
Um, Confident and worthy exude self confidence in their value. Healthy boundaries maintain strong boundaries when following through on commitments, and serves with desire. Desires fuel actions that benefit both themselves and others, right? Like that's the whole thing with like a good negotiation, right? Like if it's like one person who's like, I'm going to use and abuse you so I can do well and like make lots of money, like that other person's going to be like, shove off, like I'm going to do something else, right? Like that's not a good negotiation, right? The best negotiations are like, hey, I got this idea and this is how like you could be part of it and this is how it's going to benefit you, right? Like those good negotiations that where both people benefit, like that's some good quality will right there.
I mean, that's an ego thing to do. Make
Yeah.
sure the other benefits.
Well, it's like the 40-37, right?
Mm-hmm. Make
Healthy
sure the benefits.
boundary
Yeah.
serves through desires. Desires feel actions that benefit both themselves and others. And then inner focused competition strives to be their best self and not just to outdo others. Yeah, right. It's like my only competition is like myself and like where I want to be at and like taking care of myself and like rest your will and like only commit to stuff if it's like really what you want to do.
And the last thing about the ego that I will say in this whole thing that we didn't really touch on enough of, um, before when we talked about the throat center, we noticed all the streams of awareness except two go to the throat center. Everything seems to dead end and terminate there where manifestation takes place. It's except for the tribal stuff that goes straight to the ego.
Hmm.
The ego is its own temple inside the body graph, and it's powerful.
Hmm.
Um, and so everything about the ego is a sensitivity to the right amount of supportiveness for the tribe, such that the tribe will thrive and survive and thrive. And it's the tribe fiercely loyal is the ego, a healthy ego. Uh,
Yeah, it's the blood.
Yep. It's as if it's a blood bond, you know what I'm saying? And the demanding of loyalty back so that you can sort of sense when the other isn't.
Hmm.
Um, the supportiveness of a tribal setting to be able to stand up and help the other guy when they need it, because you'll know you'll need it at some point.
Hmm.
Instinctiveness and smell,
Yeah.
visceral, because in the tribe, you're up close and it is personal.
And that's why you hug, like when you hug and like give like the multiple cheek kisses, like especially like European countries, right? You're smelling. Hey, does this vibe, or are you a different tribe? Are you cool?
Right,
Are we
right.
cool?
Right, and you're up close enough to the person where you can actually smell them. You got to eat food with them. These are all wicked intimate acts. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You may not think much about, oh, we had lunch. That's intimate. You're both
yeah.
shoving stuff in your face
Oh
hole.
yeah.
You
Well,
know
and
what I
like
mean?
too, when you can't eat something, if like you're sick or food allergies, like I couldn't eat food with people for like years and years, and like it throws you, and you're not part of the tribe anymore. And then being able to eat with people again, I'm like, oh my god, I'm with my family again.
Right,
It's
right,
huge.
right. The
Breaking
tribe,
bread.
and even if you have a dietary regimen like myself, where I'll go off and eat by myself sometimes, it's
Hmm.
still I'm aware that I was in a tribal setting. I was
Hmm.
aware that if I'm sick, the tribe will carry me because the tribe takes care of its own. It is
Hmm.
personal. It's deeply personal, and you better freaking show up. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And now that you did show up, they pay in the greatest two ways that the tribe pays, three ways: protection, food and resources, and
Yeah,
affection.
yeah.
The tribal caring affection is like no other. I mean, it's like people will move mountains for that affection.
Oh yeah.
Yep. So it gets a lot of work done in the tribe, and it's good stuff. Yep.
All right. You want to read this one?
Sure. Healing defined ego center blocks. My purpose is to manifest desires and inspire others to believe in their own worth and their effortless abundance. It is about abundance. Every tribe is abundant unless they're falling apart.
Well, and like the purpose of the tribe is like, hey, we need to have resources. You need to develop those resources and trade those resources with other tribes for the ongoing survival of the tribe and distributing those resources, right? That's why it's like the tribe is like, hey, everyone has a place, but know your place and participate, and you contribute what and how you can, and then you will be taken care of in the other ways, right? It's like this whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. It's a thing. So that was cool.
So now Moni and I are gonna do a little switch off, and I
Let's
am I
take a
am
break.
going to yeah, take over. Non-sake girls, we gotta
I
take
get to
care of
take a break.
our own.
I get a little pause. I got to rest my will before I jump back on.
Yeah,
So,
so
so I'm
see you
saying,
see you in a second. All right, Danny. So now you and I are gonna continue the party. And let me bring it up. So we are now going to go into the spleen.
love
So,
this.
right, you love the spleen. It's also an awareness center,
Mhm.
and it is the hub for instinct and intuition and physical awareness. So
Yep.
your primal knowledge, your well-being, your health is in the center. And your physical association is your immune system, your lymphatic system, and your splenic system. If you want to elaborate, Danny.
Well, yeah, the physical association is the spleen also it washes the blood. I mean, the liver is doing its own thing with it. It actually nutrients the blood, but the spleen washes it. It is literally, along with gate 26 and the T cell, the spleen is keeping us safe, and its awareness is in the now, moment to moment. It's soft. If you're not listening, you'll miss it. And people with defined spleens have this saying over and over again. I knew it. I knew it. I should have done this. I knew it. I should have done. And they were right because the spleen has the potential for stunning, penetrating awareness in the now, like penetrating right to the core of it, not realizing you could, and being right. Yeah, that was the thing. So trust your intuition. Everyone's always saying that intuition comes out of here.
Mm-hmm. All
Yep.
right. Okay, so we're going to first look at the defined spleen, right? So these are the low expression of the defined spleen. So you have a fear of judgment. So you worry that your decisions will be seen as reckless. You try to justify things by seeking for external validation for your intuition. It's like, okay, I have to like prove that intuitive thing. So you're trying to justify it all over the place. You might have trust issues where you doubt that you're enough for others. And you overthink your intuition. So you need to overanalyze it, and then the minute you start analyzing it, it's like poof, gone.
Even
Um,
analyzing it, never mind overthinking it, just thinking it. As soon as your mind gets there, right? If you think about it, is that right,
yeah,
Moana?
the minute you're like, I need to explain what that was. Like
Yeah, you
whatever
lost.
my little intuitive nudge was, like I need to see where it's coming from. I need to know what it means,
Yeah,
and
now
it
you're
can,
gonna lose it. Yeah, yeah.
it's
So you
gone.
you live it out and analyze afterwards. You know,
Right, like do the thing. I mean, if you have a splenic authority, like please go back and watch the splenic authority episode. We had a guest on who has a splenic authority, and she was amazing.
yeah,
And she explains it. It's like I I let my body take over. So when that voice comes in and tells me to do that thing, I just do it. I don't start talking back to it and trying to get a thing because it's not going to talk back. It's just poof gone. So just do it now. You have an external dependence where instead of listening to that voice I just mentioned, you're looking for everyone else to guide you. You're
yeah,
like, okay, someone else has the answers. Someone else is going to, show me the way. When really you have your way already. You just have
mhm,
to shut up and listen.
yep.
So, you're codependent for security, right? So
Oh God,
you
yeah,
end up with these awful, unhealthy relationships just so you feel safe. And you ignore your inner wisdom, right? You end up getting disconnected from your intuition, and as a result, your health ends up suffering because your mind and body are connected. So the moment you're ignoring all the signals your body has been sending you for years, that's when disease comes.
yeah. It's true. Um, the blocks and other things. This low expression is: are you holding on to things that aren't good for you? Are you holding on to the idea? Are you holding on to that partner? I promise you, if anyone is in a hard relationship and you just are afraid to get out, I shouldn't promise, but I'll be willing to bet $10 that that they're defined spleen and you're not. At least it would be common anyways. And so yeah, that's what the spleen
So
does.
what Danny
One of the
mentioned.
things, it tries to be more spontaneous than it needs to be. That's another thing it'll do accidentally because it thinks it's supposed to, because the spleen by definition is spontaneous. So I'll amplify that and suddenly, we try to be twice as spontaneous.
Mm, the
Right.
other thing I was going to mention for those again who are super super new, and it's like, what does that all mean? So we in human design, you are essentially a walking puzzle piece. So whatever you're not, you are gravitated towards.
Yep.
So we were just talking about defined spleen peeps. Defined spleen peeps will gravitate towards undefined spleen peeps, and
Yep.
vice versa.
Vice versa. Yep.
Right, and that applies for all the centers. It applies for all the channels that, have, like, not channels, all the gates that are hanging because you want to complete the circuit.
Yep.
So that's what happens. You're just always attracted to the thing that you're not, so you could end up like making a complete
Yeah. To,
whatever.
to finesse one thing you said. So if you're a
Mhm.
defined spleen person, you absolutely will have an attraction to the openness of a open spleen person, but it isn't your primary thing. You're looking for the thing because for the centers you don't have,
Yes.
others have. I just want to just sort of throw that in there.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah, you want to be around usually people.
Yep.
I mean, I guess I mean, this is a little tangent. The only exception to this that I've noticed, not with the centers, is I tend to notice that you get these weird waves where you just keep meeting more and more people of either your profile or your
Yep.
type.
Yep.
So I'm like, I just keep
You're looking
bumping
at.
into more of you. Like, I
Yeah.
thought you guys were rare. What is happening?
Right. 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 Or the thing you're looking at, you'll start bumping into it.
Right. Yeah. So like there's the saying, type attracts type, and sometimes that happens with profile too, depending on
Yep.
how rare your profile is. Speaking of profile, this is just a interjection slash break from what we're doing. After we're done the centers, we are going to do a special episode on all the lines 1 through 6. But then after that, we're going to be doing something that has, as far as I know, knock on wood,
There's
never
never.
been attempted before. We are doing a series called the Profile Line Party, where we are going through all 12 profiles, one per week. And each week, we're gathering every energy type as to the best of our ability to represent that profile line. And it is essentially a party. So we are
Yeah.
gathering them, we're watching them, observing how that profile is expressed differently according to their energy.
And you'll
And
be seeing it too, and it'll be really interesting because you'll see all the types and the people interacting in a live group, so that's pretty good.
yeah, so really, really exciting stuff. So watch out for that. You want to be live commenting on all the things that are happening. And yeah, so that's going to be in the summer. But yeah, back to our original programming. So the high expression of the spleen, right? So it's an intuition powerhouse. So it has a super strong, reliable intuition if you're, using it, right? If you don't use it, you lose it, right? That's the saying. It's very, very true for the spleen.
Yeah.
That voice, it's like you're not listening. Bye.
Uh,
See you later, Felicia. Like that's the spleen's vibes. A vibrant energy, so exudes a natural sense of vitality and well-being. And you
help.
embrace your intuition, right? You give yourself permission to trust and act on that little voice. You just like let your body take over, which is, in
Yeah.
the spleen episode, our guest talks about it. And you conquer your fears, right? You identify and you conquer the fears and you cultivate courage within yourself to go do the hard things and the things that, don't necessarily feel like things that you think you can do at all. And you're fearless, right? You make your decision based on intuition and not on the fear, right? Because fear is when your mind takes over, right? It starts giving you
When it
all
lasts.
the
Yeah,
Mhm.
when it lasts more than a moment, that's your mind taking over,
Yeah,
totally.
that's like giving you a laundry list of all the reasons why you can't, all the
Right.
reasons why it can't happen. Um, and instead, you decide to listen to a voice that's only talking to you and you alone. So that, it's like a radical self-trust there. And you navigate the fear, right? You skillfully navigate it using your intuition because your intuition is your compass. It is your compass, your own personal compass. It will never guide you wrong. You just have to trust it and, develop that. And intuitive wellness, so you know instinctively what things are good for your body and what things aren't.
It's so true, and the intuitive wellness part is really when you have a defined spleen, just realize you don't go to the doctor a lot, usually. Usually you're aware of the things that are, that you're gonna do for your health. You just sort of know already. It's the open people that have to practice going back and forth with what will keep them healthy and not, and so we need both
hmm
types. Yep.
my husband is a defined spleen, the only defined spleen in the house. Yeah, the spleen is wise, but quiet, only speaks once. Yep, that is exactly right. It's very.
Consequence of that only speaks once. What is the consequence of that? Because it's true. When it
hmm
only speaks once, it may repeat what it had to say a moment later, but it really still is only saying it the once.
hmm hmm
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how sassy your spleen is, your spleen might not repeat.
Well, the point to it being is like, "Hey, I told you. You didn't
Mm.
listen, you
Oh, that's
missed."
even worse.
Yeah.
That's
Well, it's
even
the
worse.
spleen is
What?
the original "I told you so" in the noun.
Oh God, that's so no bueno. But how do you, heal your defined splenic center blocks, right? So I personally love this image because it shows somebody, going into the storm and trusting that that compass is going to lead the boat the right way through the storm.
Gotta
So
love it. A pirate with blue blockers going right into the storm.
yeah. So, inner compass, fearless action, right? I trust my intuition over fear, taking my action with confidence, and you're self-assured. So, you know that your decisions are yours and yours alone, and you feel safe and empowered to act, right? So this is where, you know, I think I fell in love with human design, right? Because so much of the world is homogenization, right? This is what worked for someone else, therefore you have to do this thing, right? And we are all once in a lifetime miracles, like Moni said. No, your path is yours and yours alone, and you have to have radical self-trust that when your body is talking to you, that is what is meant for you, not going into your, not self mind chatter of like, but that's what everyone else is doing, so like let me go do that thing,
Right.
right?
No, totally. It's true. Healing defined splenic. This is what we just did.
Yeah, we
Healing.
just talked about. Unless you have something to add before we go
Oh,
into the undefined spleen.
no, let's move into the undefined spleen.
Beautiful.
'Cause that's the one that needs more healing.
So here we have a very sad, shocked bride. Something undefined spleen might happen, right? With the
Those
avoiding
big bug eyes of this picture fit the open spleen. That's why I
sorry,
got
say that
tripped up.
again.
Those big bug eyes open on this young lady. She's
Yep.
obviously, oh my godding. That's in the now. That's the open spleen's look. It's a really
Yeah.
good
Oh,
picture.
wow. See, I instinctively
Yep, you
made this
instinctively
image
got
then.
the right picture. Yeah, yeah.
Amazing. I mean, this is why I do it, right? Because pictures say words. You might zone us
You-
out. You might zone out the the
Right.
text, but those images are going to stick in your head, and it'll help you remember stuff that we're talking about. So that's why
Sure.
I do them. But anyhow,
Right.
you avoid responsibility, right? You're like, if I, take charge of this, I don't want to be accountable for people, so you just don't even go there. And this is similar to the
'Cause you
previous
don't feel
spleen.
safe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have faith. Yep. You doubt your intuition, so your inner wisdom and your guidance, you're like, I don't know about that. And here, from the undefined spleen, you're making decisions out of fear, right?
Yep.
You are worst case scenario spinning. So it's like, I need to do this because if I don't do this, this will happen. And that is already you're way out of alignment when you're
It's, yep.
when you're
It's,
living that way.
yep.
Codependency, right? You are forming unhealthy relationship and clinging. So this is even more so a thing in undefined spleen peeps. Hanging on
Yeah.
to things that are terrible for you
Yep.
because you're like, well, this is what makes me feel good, even though it's actually like slowly draining you. And it's like horrendous. And you absorb other people's fears, right? And it ends up hurting yourself, right? So I don't know, maybe I'm just broken. I have an undefined spleen. I don't typically pick up on other people's fears, but I know people who have undefined spleens and they are anxious AF. They
Yep.
are worried about everything under the sun. It's like, oh, I can't eat this thing, or I can't go here. I can't do this way. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like such a horrible way to live. Just like,
Yes, this is the not self of the open spleen, very much so. It's like really trying to micro navigate every
yeah.
little thing, thinking you have to, afraid you're not safe, afraid you're not
Mhm.
healthy, afraid you're not good enough, being driven by fear. The spleen was the first fear awareness center. I have to correct something from before I forgot where it got said, but the G center and the ego are not actual awareness centers, but they do bring awareness. There's no question. But the three awareness centers are the spleen, the ajna, solar plex. I mean, this little trifecta is making us aware, and the spleen's awareness is the moment to moment. Is it safe? Is it not safe? Duck, run, hide, stay, gather, whatever it is. And that's exactly what the spleen's there to do. It's our oldest mammalian awareness. It's back every creature that has a heartbeat, every mammal, every living fish, bird, you name it, iguanas, they all have a spleen in them, giving them an instinctual, intuitive, turn left, dart, run. The rabbit freezes, and the lion runs, and the gazelle freaks out. They all have a spleen, and it determines and it creates the act of survival because it's quick, lightning fast. It's like a sacral in a way, but it's not.
Mm. Oh, yeah. So Danny, the way I got, story time, the way I got acquainted with Danny, for those of you who haven't heard this story, buckle up. It's fun. So I for for those who don't know this, I'm huge into celebrity gossip. It's just like so fun.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so juicy. I don't care if it's trashy. Like, sign me up. Sign me up to the trash pile. And the Royals, being Canadian, I've always kept up with them. And I found Danny doing a reading on Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and
Yep.
my jaw was on the floor. I'm like, oh, this is so juicy. And I'm like, let me go grab the
Hey,
popcorn.
didn't I come to a conclusion somewhere along there? I remember the
Oh, that's
show
what
a
I'm
little bit.
telling you. That's what I'm
Yeah,
telling you. So I was like, this is amazing. Oh my God. Um, so then I, this was before Harry's memoir came out, by the way. So before Spare came out, like maybe 2, 3 months beforehand, and you
Mhm.
were getting really deep into stuff. Like you were
Yeah.
talking about how they met, their dating life, like his habits, how he was with Princess Diana, how his relationship is. I think he even touched on a little bit with Prince William. I can't remember. Um, and then the memoir came out, and everything you said was there.
Didn't I also predict that those two didn't really like each other that much? I
Wait,
forget.
who's those two? I don't remember now.
Harry and Meghan.
Harry and Meghan? No, you didn't say that.
Okay.
No, no, no.
Must have been
But
someone
I
else.
I was on the floor. I'm like, so then I'm like, whatever he did for Harry and Meghan, he has to do for me and my husband.
Ah,
So I'm like, he needs to read for us. So I went and sought him out. He had a reading. And one of the things he said during the reading, so this is why I'm like, this tangent
yeah,
will
yeah.
circle back to the spleen watch. He said, my husband has lightning fast reflexes. Like I said, he's the only defined spleen in the house. So there are times where, our kid will get into a situation before I can even think, oh shit, what's wrong? He's out, like doing that thing. And I'm like, I don't know how you did that. Like, that's crazy town. But yeah, his body just. So when he said that, I'm like, oh my God, that is true. So
Well,
yes.
because when you have a defined sacral, the spleen speaks through the sacral.
Oh.
Yes. Yes. The sacral will be like, yes, spleen, I got the hit. I will release the energy now. But the sacral never needs the spleen to release its energy. It's still a
Mm,
response. It's still a response. The spleen
mm.
gives an intuition about a thing. So it's different.
We had a very interesting question. I kind of want to
Yeah.
look at this. So I wonder what happens to people who have their spleen removed.
Dear Lord. You
Right?
can
I
do
mean, when we looked at
whoa,
the
whoa, whoa.
splenic center, right?
You
It's
can
not
you
just the spleen.
I didn't know you can have an kidney removed because you got 2, but you only got 1 spleen. How do you have that removed?
I don't know if you can have your whole spleen removed. We need some clarification on this. Any doctors on the call?
But let's just presume the question for a moment because it is a good question. The answer is I don't know. I hadn't thought about that as far as the spleen actually goes. Um, I would be willing to venture that there is an interruption. If you
Mm,
interrupt the spleen, you're interrupting something about your intuition, your instinctiveness, this judgmentation that you have, the correctability, the solutions, the penetrating awareness, all of it. The tribal lawgiver, all of that.
So apparently, we had someone check. Mini Moni checked. You can get it removed, but you end up getting more infections potentially because your spleen, like you mentioned, is cleaning the blood.
There's no potential. You get it removed, you're gonna have a short life. Something was wrong. No,
It's like when you get it's
may
like when
get
you
some
get a
more.
kidney removed, you definitely are shortening your lifespan by however many years. Like that's a
The
for
kidney
sure
you live
given.
without. The spleen, there's only one of them. I mean, whatever. You'd be hooked up to some kind of dialysis machine, I imagine, but
Duh.
anyway.
Anyway, that's a crazy tangent. But
Crazy
anywho,
kid. Crazy
uh,
town.
I'm just gonna look at the bright side of if you need to get your spleen removed. Your spleen is not just living in your spleen, right? Like there's other parts of what was it? What was that slide? I'm gonna go back and read my own slide because I can't remember. Yeah, your immune and the lymphatic system, right? So
Mhm.
those are spread out throughout you. That's not just in your spleen. So those other set areas of your body is gonna have to work a little harder. Is gonna put more strain on you. So there's that. But now we can go back to where my brain. Oh no, there we go. Your undefined splenic center, your high expression, right? So you can notice other people's fear without absorbing them. So I feel like I'm living that. I can be like,
Mhm.
ooh, yeah, that's not fun. You do
Right.
that. That's awful. Mindset abundance. You focus on areas where you're already thriving instead of focusing on things that aren't working. I mean, like our brains, like our physical brains, are still caveman brains, right? So we are still hardwired to look for the things that are wrong because that's what kept us alive all these years. But we don't live like that anymore. So that does take a lot of practice to be like,
Yep.
you know what? That's my primitive brain, but we are in a modern society. I don't have to keep focusing on all the things that don't work. You have multifaceted intuition, right? So you get intuitive guidance through many different channels. So if you have an undefined spleen, it can come in through other ways, um, besides the quiet voice, which is usually how the spleen talks to you. And you embrace releasing. You let go of the things that don't serve you. And for someone who hung on to, relationships with family and things that were like and I have an undefined G. So it really felt yucky to be in those people's presence. And I kept doing it because I'm like, this is what you do. You keep in touch with your family. Like, what are people going to say? And then at some point, I just let go. And I'm like, you know what? This is what feels good to me. People be damned. People be damned. And yeah, it took a lot of work to feel that, um what's it called, like, let myself off the hook, to like let my body lead and not just do what society thinks is right. And effortless abundance, right? You bring in the right nourishment for your optimal health. Anything
Yeah.
to add?
Well, yeah, it's the right nourishment. You bring in the right ways that you're going to be. You bring in when you have an open spleen, meaning undefined, and you get sick. Suddenly, instead of being terribly worried about all the sickness, you can finally realize, oh, I have the right illness for me.
Oh, that's
That's
a
a
way to look at it.
Well, it's true. It's wicked true. Talk about a shortening of your illness, by the way. I have the right illness for me because no one goes through life without getting sick. You know what I mean? There's
Right.
no, unless you're in some kind of bubble, in which case you're prone to get sick at everything. Now you're all messed up. So, and the recognition that you don't need to hang on to the thing that doesn't serve you, that doesn't feel good, because the spleen, when you're open, like I have an open spleen, you do too. When we get into the room and we get into any kind of bond with somebody who is defined, suddenly they feel good. They just feel good.
Yes, you said they make you feel safe.
They make you feel safe. They make you feel good. It's just sort of a thing, and that includes not feeling safe, and it's a bad thing. But you still can't get over the fact that you're being conditioned by you. You might be able to feel good. Oh, it's like
So
you're holding.
like,
Yeah, it's
there was
bad.
a mechanical thing, right? I mean, that's the thing. Human design is mechanics, right? It's not like, airy fairy woo woo stuff. It's like, this is just how your body works, and this is how it interacts with other bodies. Like, this is what that is. And so with my son, also undefined spleen, even though I spend the majority of day with him, he gravitates towards daddy.
Father.
And
Yep.
before human design, I would feel a type of way about that. I'd feel
Right.
kind of butthurt. I'm like, I'm the mom. I'm the one who carried you for 9 months and
Right.
like,
Right.
nursed you for 2 years. Why do you love him more? Well, and then,
Right.
someone came and was like, no, this is just mechanics. It's
Yeah.
just he feels
And
safe around him. And I'm
it's
like,
not
okay,
love more, by the way. It's not
let's
love's
not
more.
love more. Yep.
No, it's not more. It's different. It's just dad has a defined spleen and it's a feel good center. Because when your spleen is healthy, you feel good. I'm talking about healthy. You feel good.
Hmm.
You might not feel good about the romance that you're still crying about. You might not feel good about the job you just got, but you yourself,
Yeah.
you feel good, and that's a buzz. That's a
Hmm.
buzz. People go
Hmm.
through all kinds of efforts to take concoctions and go to the gym and do all this stuff, and there's all kinds of endless industry about feeling good. That's all
Yep.
spleen talk. Spleen.
So the healing, the undefined spleen shadows, right? So you know that you are safe and secure even when you are feeling uncertain, right? And you are surrounded by support, both internal and external, right? Even though the world might make us feel like, it's all crashing down on us, like you are okay. Like, unless, you have like flesh eating bacteria disease and you are actually dying.
Right.
In that case, I'm so sorry. But for the most part,
There's the right path for you, maybe. Yeah.
yeah, you're in good hands, right? You wouldn't be here unless you had some sort of purpose to be fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and your sense of well-being and independent from, so your well-being, you are okay even though financially you might feel like, oh my god, like my loans are up the wazoo, like I'm guilty of this. I'm like, oh my god, like
Independent of
I am.
all the things,
Mhm.
Moana,
Mhm.
Moana, independent of all of it. It's
Mhm.
independent. It's sort of like the will, where you just nothing to prove, undefined. It's you're okay, and you start to realize you're okay because you've practiced it. Defined
Mm.
don't practice being okay. They're just okay. Just like a defined throat doesn't think how to speak; it just speaks. Defined. the open spleen practices at
Mhm.
feeling good. And then we become wise in all the ways to feel good. And then we become the great empath for the other. I notice you're not
Mm,
feeling good. I think I know why I've done this. I've seen parts of this. Let's share some of this. Boom.
mhm.
Really, if I go to a doctor, I don't necessarily want a splenic doctor. I would like an open spleen doctor who's tried some of this and tried some of that and tried some of his own concoctions. Hey, you jab that in your arm too, you know?
Well
But
then, well, I was gonna say if Moni is ready to come back on, because now we're gonna do our lab portion, as one of my besties called it, of the stream, where all the lovely things we showed you, we're gonna show how it applies to a body graph. So today's body graph guest is going to be Moni. Last week we did Danny. This week it's Moni. So let me
oh, I
bring
had I did great last week. I spilled the beans. I said everything, didn't I?
you said you gave us like
Yeah,
arms, legs, and liver. Like we
Yeah.
didn't have to go
yeah.
that deep, but you just did it.
I spilled the beans,
You just
right?
did it. So I'm
Yeah,
just giving Moni a chance to
Bam.
settle in, and then give me the signal when you're good.
I'm pretty good.
You're good. All right. So I will let you and Danny explain the beauty that is your body graph and apply it to all the stuff that we've been talking about, so people have an actual visual representation.
Cool.
Absolutely.
And I'll see if I'm talking about just the identity and the ego, but I feel like I'll end up probably talking about more than that.
So many things to talk about. So are you nervous at all or do you care?
I don't know. I've done so many wild performances in my life, like talking about human design and talking about myself is like, that's cool.
You don't care. It's all great, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
I've been so much more exposed on stage than in this. I'm like, this is cool.
Oh, yeah, perfect. I mean, that's what I did last week. I remember I was like, "Oh, Dan, you're telling everyone some pretty intimate shit." You know what I mean? And I'm
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, who cares?"
yeah.
It was great. I felt
Like,
great.
yeah, I mean, it's just life. It's just the story. It's just the movie. And like, no one wants to watch a movie that's not like fun and detailed and like telling the good, weird, juicy stuff.
Mm, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, where should we start?
I mean, so I figure like identity and will make the most sense, especially since those are two of the three centers we talked about. So, you know.
This identity in this will has gotten you in trouble a few times?
Yeah. Yeah, not even ever anytime that I mean to. I remember one of my favorite, like, raw quotes that really, like, blew my mind was he was talking about the 25-51, the connection between the will and the identity, right? And so, like, that's that gall to jump into the unknown, right? And there's, like, this competition, except it's not like we're really competitive, but other people will very much perceive us as competitive. Like, I don't see myself as, like, an especially competitive person, but it's like when it's the thing that I'm supposed to be doing, like, it is like a racehorse that just like compelled to win, right? But the perception from other people who have that undefined. And one of the things that Ross said is like he'll never like argue with people. Like he's really learned not to because before he would, and then like people would like double it against him. So like people would come up to him and start like arguing something, and then he's like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Yep.
And he wouldn't give them any of his willpower to then amplify and use against him. So that's definitely been something that I've been engaging with a bit more because that one can definitely get me into more trouble of like people thinking I'm fighty when I'm not, where it's just like, you don't want me to be fighty. Like that's not a good idea for anybody.
And
Um,
it's not even any fun. You don't want it. It's no
no.
fun.
And I don't want to fight. I've had enough fighting and aggression in my life. Like I don't want to do that unless I really have to.
Well,
But
when you're a single definition, and the definition is individual in nature, not only individual, but the centering circuit. Um, so that means it's all about the individual creativity in the pulse, in the now. Here you are with a defined ego, yet that individual creativity is independent of will. You can't will yourself a great painter today. You can pick up a brush one day in a magic moment and suddenly paint something great. That's the individual. So you would have had issues in your life where you went back and forth. How come I'm not staying with the thing? How come I am so good suddenly? Am I supposed to be this way? You would have had both, and they could have been confusing, or you could have held on to one, and even though it wasn't good for you, a persona, a thing.
oh,
Talk.
yeah, that's where you can bring in like the open spleen, right? Like hanging on to something that's not good to be hanging on to. And I've definitely
Mhm.
hung on to lots of horrible things and less than ideal people and situations or social groups, right?
Yep.
Definitely clung to something, right? And that fear of like not being able to survive or being in that bad relationship with that dude that you want to break up with that you just can't get away from because as soon as you're in aura, you like cling back, you know?
Yep. Yep. So what else? I mean, when I did my body graph, I remember I wanted to talk about the things that were hard and then how my true self dealt with it. I think that's what I did last week. You know what I mean? You know, the difficulties and then what my definition did about it, basically. You know what I mean? And what brought me here at the end of the day, and then the peace of it all.
Mhm. Yeah, and, like, the main thing that comes to mind for me there is, like, just because I have 2 centers in this sea of openness, right? Like, 2 defined centers in 7 open centers, and so it's this very defined me and this way of being and, like, what I am capable of and what I do bring to the party, but it's lost in the sea of everything and everyone else. So the thing that's usually most difficult for me is feeling so much of everybody else and every other situation and every other thing to do and every planetary influence. It's like I'll feel like I'm in like the middle of a tornado or just this game of whack-a-mole where I don't know which thing I'm supposed to be doing until I'm finally like, la, and like eye of the hurricane, like leave me alone, I'm out. And I just like will like completely like retire and get away from everything and just try to recenter, right? The centering circuit, right? Recenter back into myself because I can get lost in so much openness. That's definitely been like the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that. And getting lost in the openness and just sort of not knowing. How about so as a projector type when you were growing up, did you find that you went from being healthy and happy about the not knowing and the too many things going through and they weren't too many things, and then suddenly do you remember the point in time when that open head, ajna throat really took your sense of will and self-worth away for times here and there because of just too much not being you. You know what I mean? None of, by the way, disclaimer, nobody is themselves until they've had their chart read. I
And then gone through many years of
and
deconditioning
go
and
ahead, yeah, and
experimenting.
experimenting for and at least started into experiments so you can start to get there. No one is fully themselves. There are moments of serendipity where you are yourself. There's no question, and yourself is sitting there, and it does come out. You
But just
share the stage.
lost.
Yeah, well, that we are constantly sharing the stage with who we're not, the not self, and then we get lost in all that, and we can't tell that we're ourselves, even though technically, probably a third to half the time we're being ourselves.
Hmm.
It's lost in the sea of the not self, which is all fear and worry. So being ourselves suddenly feels like this won't last. You know what I mean? This is
Yeah, or
like,
waiting for the other shoe to drop or that it
yeah,
hasn't been safe to be yourself or whatnot.
yeah, I get that. I totally get that. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely, like, as an exhausted projector, you know, where it's just, like, there's always so much to do, and it wasn't like today's kids where you're like, "Plan a little rest time for, like, little Joey," or something. Like, I just feel like it was constantly going, and it was, like, school and choir and Polish school and, like, Polish dancing and church again, and, like, there's just multitudes of so much going on, and I thank my parents for all of it. Like, I thank them for the Polish school, I thank them for the religious teaching, like, I thank them for all of it, like, they did all their best. It was just so perpetually exhausting to constantly have another thing and another thing and another thing, and never being able to lay or to rest. There's just no understanding of it like any other kid. It's like, let them run around into, like, collapse for the most part.
yeah,
But yeah, it was a lot of perpetual exhaustion and then picking up so much of everyone else's experiences, right? And so this is like middle school, high school, everyone's angst and anger and frustration. It was just like I felt like a cesspool of amplification of all of it. Like very bitter, very resentful, very angry. Like there was that little like loving, you know, good time, silly, funny Moni inside, but like so defensive and angry and spikes to the world kind of Moni that you know came through in different iterations and then trying to come out and like express in like you know a softer kind of way which is ultimately who I am. I'm this little vessel of love and this soft little you know
well,
cute little thing, but
the
not
world,
feeling
the
safe to
world
and then
didn't
having
let
to
you,
revert back.
the world didn't let you love yourself the way you knew you needed to be and you were,
Oh
and
yeah.
the world did not love you the way that you knew something was wrong. The vessel is
Oh, yeah.
innately aware of that. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely, and, like, the thing with, like, projectors have, like, 7-year cycles, I've heard is, like, a very relevant thing, and I can
we all
very
do,
much
but you
relate
guys
to that.
definitely yeah.
Yeah, it's, like, extra, extra thick with the
Yep,
projector or something,
yep,
right?
yep.
And
The
I
shame
definitely remember that in very specific ways of, like, I remember, like, 7 years old having this, like, realization of, like, "Oh, I can't be all nice and sweet and soft who I am. This is not safe. These kids are not nice. Like, this is too rough." And I like that now I can understand it as, like, that vessel hiding and that little deconditioning and that little, like, armor to the world came out of
yeah,
it. And then at 14, it came out again of just like, fuck everybody. I'm going to be a little Miss Angry Punk Rocker who thinks she's hot shit or whatever, 14-year-old nonsense. But another layer of like spikes and protection and like, to the world. And then 21, like I remember like, oh, maybe now, like I'm in college and it's nice and maybe I can express and be more soft and feminine. And then that backlashing, it's like, oh, no, 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 that's not safe either. And then like 28 it definitely hit again in another way where it's like, well, I'm going to reject everything and just go my own crazy way. um, and then my body breaking down and all the health issues and all the chaos, and then luckily finding human design. And now finally, after years of human design and finally being in my right like physical environment and being with like a really great man where I can finally feel safe to be a girl, I can feel safe to be feminine, I can feel safe to be that vessel of love, and being letting down those spikes, letting down all that armor, and just being able to breathe and just slowly allowing my true self to develop more and more and express more freely.
tell me, tell me about your trip through the depressions that would then solve themselves to where you got here now. I'm guessing there was a couple. I'm seeing 36 to find twice. I'm seeing gate 55.
I mean, yeah, so like 6 and 36 are my nodes on both sides.
Yep,
So I feel like I'm real used to the 6 environment just punching me in the face with that impact and invasion, where it's like learning to handle the impact and invasion. So I feel a little bit more like, yeah, no, that happens. Like, all right. Like definitely crazy shit will happen around me or in situations, right? My 51 with shock. So definitely that, but like I have also like realized and like getting into the lines of my chart is like I'll always survive the crisis, I'll always survive the shock. Crazy shit will happen, just roll through it, and just like trust like the 25 will know where to go in danger. Like the 2551 will know where to go for safety, right? It's the power of the will guided by spirit. So like
right,
I
right.
trust that, and I've been in a lot of weird
You'll stand
situations,
up
a
and
lot
say,
of
"Follow me," in that moment. That's what this
Mhm.
warrior priestess will do. I get it.
Mhm. And I've
Yep,
literally been in that situation where there was a dangerous situation and I was like, "We gotta get the fuck out of here." And my
right.
people like were kind of like in frozen mode of like, should they help or do this or whatever? And I was like, "Yo, let's go, let's go." And I yelled several times before I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go." And then once I ran, then they like followed after me. But it was literally that, and I knew exactly where to go and where to get to like a little safe
One of my
spot
favorite
just with that
lines
instinct. What's
in,
that?
it's one of my favorite lines in a movie. It's just this moment where Tony Stark and maybe it's the 3rd one, and everything's falling apart, and poor Pepper, she's like, "Well, and Tony yells at her, "Stop stopping! Just stop stopping!" "Oh, okay." Yeah, it was just
Yeah,
yeah, it was great.
that's a fun one. Yeah, I
But
mean, oh God, ask me another
what
thing.
just, as it relates to if you have 55, and I see it's in a 4th line, so this would be a communicated item, meaning it had to communicate out one way, shape, or form, or not, or it shut the F up. And when it needed to communicate out, along with 41 and 36 and sexual conflict and
Blah.
intimacy conflict.
Blah.
I'm just saying, at what point did you realize as a young lady that you didn't need to be depressed over this? You didn't need to be wigged out. You didn't need to whatever, something, or maybe not. I mean, I'm making presumptions, by the
Yeah, yeah,
way.
yeah. No, no, there's all sorts of chaos
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
All sorts. No, that was definitely all chaotic through most of life. And then there was definitely a very specific point where it's just like it was just like I had heard of human design. I'd seen the chart, but I was, what is? I hadn't gone deep yet. And then there's a very specific point where it's just like I'm done trying, I'm done chasing, I'm done trying to be the girl to try to find the guy and the this and the sexy and whatever. And I just had this very like, I'm done trying to make the thing happen and chase something because that's not how it's going to be. And I kind of just was like, okay, well, I'm not doing that anymore. And then that was like January or so. And then it was March where I rediscovered human design on like March 1st. And I went and started massage school on March 14th. And then like was just very like hyper focused into like human design, learning my chart, deconditioning, doing massage, learning anatomy, getting all that touch supplementation through massage and how healing that was, and like really super just focusing on healing me and not trying to fill that void from outside, not trying to chase the affections or the comfort or the love of a man, in that very like not projector way of trying to make that thing happen, and just was very like, I'm gonna take care of me, I'm gonna take care of my will and my moaniness. And it was like literally 6 months after that I met my forever. I met like my perfect guy, and it's been continually better and better since. So it was in the stopping trying to make the thing happen and stop trying to be the XYZ girl, and just focusing on taking care of myself, healing myself, learning who the hell I am. And because it was always like trying to do the things that everyone else was doing and failing at that. Like I could do certain things very amazingly, but there was not that consistency. And I was not that typical generator type, and I couldn't work in those ways. But I did have my own brilliance. But it was very challenging trying to be a generator, trying to be a manifester type when that wasn't my nature. And when I finally allowed myself to live within my nature,
Right.
there's the bumps along the way. Obviously, there's lots of deconditioning, but like I'm in my 6th year now, and it's like really like more and
That's
more
so
juicy all the
sexy.
time.
This is so juicy. It's just so good. It's like, Moni, I recognize you. I've noticed you're in my little invitation sphere. That's what last night's text was. In case nobody knew, I just texted her out of the blue. It was like, mama, 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 oh, no, 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 no. It's like, and she didn't quite know what that was, but I only want to hang around with people who know who they are. And
Mm,
I mean, and I'll hang around with anyone on my vessel. I'll let them in, and I will because I'm trying to. I'm fourth line. I'm going to try and convert them actually. So, sorry, but yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I've lost friends.
hmm
When I say lost friends, it's just they've sort of fallen off,
Yeah.
or in the beginning, people thought I was crazy. I remember that. Of course, I started when the knowledge was still newer to the plane. It's starting to catch. It's catching on now, isn't it?
It's gone nuts. Even since like I mean, you've been into it way longer than I have, but like I remember when I first got into it, there was like no videos. There's the Hawaiian human design guy. There's like one guy who had videos on YouTube, and I learned like everything from his videos. And
Right.
then in the past 6 years, and especially the past like 3 years, it's just like super blown up. So yeah, no, it's definitely a lot more mainstream. And a lot more people know about it. But then there's also a lot more diffuse information of like the HD influencer popness that is a little like, I'm glad people are finding out about things, but I hope they can find the accurate information because there's a lot of weird stuff being put out
Yeah,
there. But
you're trying to change stuff. There's 4 types, not 5, you know what I mean? Add color to the keynotes, but keep the original keynotes. They were written down for a reason,
mhm,
Accept the fact that we didn't bring up the knowledge. The knowledge came to us through a
yeah.
guy named Pa Uruhu. It's not our fault, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? We
like
got
appreciate that primary source nature. I wanted to
uh,
comment though on one of the things that you said, in terms of wanting to be around people who are themselves and like who feel good
mm,
and who taste good. Um, I think there's a really important thing about that, in that don't compare yourself to anybody else because you're not going to be anyone else. Like I can never be, a manifesting generator who can do all these things. I'm never going to be a manifester who can like just initiate and make the thing happen. And if I try, I'm going to fail. However, like the more I actually learn about myself and decondition myself and take care of myself and rest my will and take care of my identity and my being and my meanness, then the more like tasty I am to people, the more invitable, right? The fact that you're thinking of me to send me a silly text,
yeah,
uh,
that
you know,
came so deep. It was so good. I couldn't wait, and I was loving it. I saw the 2 Ps. I did not go back to correct them. I'm like, "No, no, I'm in a flow. I can't correct. I can send."
and
It
it
was
was
so
great,
good.
but that I think like really can say something like to the audience of just like the more you that you are, and the more that you heal your hurt, and the more that you heal that bad thing that bit you in the ass whenever, like love to you, and also you can heal from it. We're incredibly resilient. And the more we heal from it and we decondition and we let go of the nonsense and we make ourselves in a better state, like you're going to get projected, you're going to get those invitations. You don't need to initiate, generator, you don't need to initiate and make the thing happen. Like the whole world is coming to you for you to respond to.
Yeah.
Manifestors, take care of yourselves and be in alignment. So then you're aware when you get that hit of like, hell yeah, I'm going to go do that thing. So like the more we take care of ourselves and the more we decondition ourselves, like the more we're in the flow of the universe, the more we are tasty and invitable, the more people want to be with us and engage with us. So I think that's ultimate. It's like be the most you that you can be in the most, kindest, ethical way. Like the world will come to you and the world will keep getting better and you don't have to worry about it.
It's so true. It is so true. I think this is a great spot. I think we're on a good spot.
Yeah.
You get start your experiment. Come in for a reading. Set up a schedule. Get the analysis underway so that you can start to wake up to your own nature. Each awake person who truly gets into their experiment and does the thing has the consciousness field that lifts up to 100,000 people around them. So that's a big deal, and that's a huge energetic assist the planet needs. And we need to cure this planet of ours. It's sick, and that's where my focus goes there. I'm in the love of humanity. She's worth saving. That's all.
Right.
One at
So
a time, we're doing it.
what Danny was saying, right, about the reading thing. So if you have been hanging out in the chat, you'll see like a little blip pop up. It's like our little coffee bot. So if you go there, you can actually get yourself a mini reading. So if you're like, you know what, I'm not ready to have all this information. I'm not ready. This is
Get
like a
the mini
light
reading.
little
Yeah.
get a little mini reading. It's a little taste, right? And then you can at least you have some foundation to like start your experiment on that's more personalized to you instead of, trying to figure it out from piecing information from here and there, right?
I can't wait to do some live readings on, I can't wait because for people who didn't know or whatever, maybe they're just getting started, right? Their first time around and they're letting it go live. They're willing to be that kind of open too, because I want
Yeah,
our
I am
audience.
toying around with the idea. So we are going to be setting up a Patreon, right? We'd love to have patrons who actually helps like support this channel. Like so much goes into making these episodes happen. Like hours. You have no idea. Like we make it look easy, but a lot goes in. So any sort of support you throw our way, like it's greatly appreciated. We're toying around with having like prizes. So like with prizes, it could be readings, having little mini cheat sheets and reports. Like we are open to ideas. So like if you're like, you know what, I want more, like throw it in the chat. And when we're building out our thing, like we will incorporate it. Like we want you to be a part of this stream, right? This wouldn't be happening if you're not watching. I mean, it would be, but it'd be like us talking to an empty cave. It's not really
Right,
fun for
right.
anybody. But yeah, so like throw your ideas in the chat. And yeah, we're playing around with that. So expect an announcement soon when we have that set up. But yeah, it's going to be fun. We definitely want to do stuff like live readings and like having live events and things like that. So like things are in the works.
I'm
Things are in the
interested in the
works.
world seeing because is it a fair assumption that still, let's say 1% of the planet actually intimately knows human design? Maybe only 1/2 of 1% of the planet truly is intimately like now into human design. Another 5% have heard about it. Is that maybe fair? I don't know
The
what the
actual numbers, I have no idea. Like, 'cause here's the
more than
numbers that
1%.
Ra threw out, right? Ra was like 4% of the planet will hear of human design, and then of that 4%, only 4% is actually going to start their experiment and actually going to start living it out. So there's plenty of people that I'm like, "Oh my god, human design, rah," and they're like, "Okay, cool," and they don't do anything with it.
Right. Those are the folks now they have a potential belief, but I've always wanted people to witness the absolute reality of a reality TV show in the moment,
Okay,
reading for
Danny, you're
somebody.
reading my mind. Okay, so for people who are reality TV show junkies, I have this crazy manifester idea urge thing. I personally love 90 Day Fiance, and there were two particular guests that are more on the woo woo side. So I'm like, I wonder if we can get them on the show and read for them because it's 90 Day Fiance, so it's a couple. So it would be a couple's reading if they agreed to this crazy idea of
And
coming on the
and
show.
and and we could and the world and themselves, if they've never been read before, especially can
Probably, most likely, yeah.
yeah, can witness that moment where they first hear the knowledge and they're wondering how did this crazy little fucker know this stuff. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
so if
And they're
there's, like, a
wondering, "Oh my god, it's
streamer
her."
for people who are into, Twitch, if there's, like, a streamer you really enjoy and you're like, "I wanna know, I want their chart read," like, throw them our way, like, we'll reach out and see if they're willing to be on the show. Same thing with, like, reality TV peeps. They go on podcasts and stuff all the time, so who knows?
Right, right, right. Come get read and see the thing and let the world see that the truth was revealed to you so that the world can see that. They
Yeah.
can't it can only be shown one way, truthfully.
Yeah,
So,
so like throw names of guests at us, right? Like we want to make this as fun and interactive as possible. But
uh,
yeah, next week we are going to be finishing off the center series and it'll be the last 3 that we haven't covered yet, which is the sacral, the emotional solar plexus and the root. So, come on out. It's going to be mind blowing. Like, I mean,
yeah,
ideally, you came to all 3 because then you have a full picture of your body graph now, at least a high level overview. And then, yeah, it's going to be my body graph. We're gonna look at as the example one. So it'll be a good time. But again, if you've been watching and you're not following, like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah,
you
what
need
are you
to
doing?
follow us. Like,
What the F?
unacceptable. I know you people in the replays. I'm calling you out. There's more people watching the replays, and I don't know if all of you are followers. So go do that. Show us some love, right? Because that's how we know we actually, you like what we're doing. But yeah, jump in the water's fine. Exactly. We're not gonna bite. We're gonna be like, oh my god, this is this is a thing. People love us. Um, that's my undefined ego talking. Like, a little bit of validation here. Uh,
It's all true. It's true.
yeah, just a little bit.
I
Um,
love undefined ego. It does it I love it. I
right?
love
It's like I'm not trying to prove anything. It's just like, yeah, show us some love. And yeah, so we are gonna see you same time next week. Come with your questions, have your body graphs ready so you can follow along. Because again, this is us serving you, right? As it means
period.
nothing if you're not here to ask the things and get to know yourself. That's what we're here for. Awaken yourself, right?
Waking your human design.
Amazing. So next
Hey,
time, next
what? Moni was
same
about to
time.
say something.
What?
Moni, were you
Sorry.
about to say something?
No, I
Oh,
just
okay.
got hearts.
Yeah, she just has love for everyone. So,
Yep.
cheerio, adieu, and see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.